Bueller 2015 suggests an effective way to implement change is to utilize Bolman and Deal's four-frame model to thoroughly examine, identify, and mitigate potential barriers or resistance to a change initiative. Bueller recognized that all four frames are important. However, he argues that the symbolic frame is particularly important when organizations are undergoing profound change. The shift to online learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic is a major change that higher education institutions moved through recently. We're going to look at how the change leaders can use Bolman and Deal's four frames to highlight some of the high-level potential barriers, and then focus on the symbolic frame in more detail and work through how we can move from these barriers to some strategies. When looking through the lens of the structural frame, Bueller explains a change leader would complete an analysis of what resources are available for such a change, whether this change supports the direction we need to go, what current councils or committees are required to support, what new councils or committees are going to be needed to sustain the change, as well as what structures do we have currently in place and what need to be created. This is going to illuminate some barriers that are required to mitigation on confusion and the perception of instability around the initiative. Moving to the human resource frame, we want to review who's going to support the initiative from responsibilities, who's going to be accountable, what stakeholders we need to consult with before making final decisions, and which stakeholder groups just need to be informed along the way. Once you know what level of interest and control these stakeholders have on the initiative, we can review how these groups are going to react to this change and what we're going to need to do to get buy-in. This initiative concise enough to ensure that their opinions are based on the merit of the initiative and not just on our relationships. You also need to analyze any possible alternate motivations that could create challenges. With this lens, we can see that online education can leave some feeling incompetent or anxious. Training and active supports will be key as a strategy to overcome these barriers. Now, with the political frame, which stakeholder groups can we count on? Which ones are going to be our largest resistors to this initiative? Which groups are going to feel that they're being negatively affected by this change? This frame analyzes who our cheerleaders are going to be and reviews who our greatest supporters are going to be for more than just their job requirements. Knowing who will support and who will resist the change allows leaders to adjust the messaging to ensure there's clear direction and support. When looking at our example, conflict with faculty that have courses that aren't easily transitioned online are going to be challenging. Communication strategies around who to connect with for support and making sure that there's open dialogue constantly to these key stakeholder groups to ensure they're not feeling like they're left behind is going to be important. So as we stated, Buller says that the symbolic frame is crucial. What stakeholder groups will see this as a loss or departure from our core values? As we know, some of us work for institutions that see face-to-face learning offerings as their way to stand out in a global learning market. This could feel like a loss of vision or purpose for some. There's going to be barriers around what the outcome will be and a push to remain consistent with what's been done in the past. Change leaders are going to need to review and support how this change can support current values and where the mission's not going to be affected. What events can support this? Looking at online learning, having some training events, informal ceremonies online to highlight the connection that can still be found even when you're working remotely. These events create a sense of community for stakeholders, and ensuring that they're maintained can be a high priority for some organizational cultures. The spokesperson for this change is going to be key. They need to communicate this adjustment of process while being consistent with values. Like any change, if the communication is given from a view of loss of identity instead of the growth, the barrier around loss of purpose will be cemented in place. If messaging supports a celebration of a new chapter and has information on what's going to be done to mitigate yet understand the loss that many stakeholders will feel, this adjustment has a much better chance of success. This lens also had us look at a metaphor and leap to the future stuck out for us. For an institution that had less online presence, this is their chance to step into a new world. So as you can see, each frame brought forward a different view of the barriers associated with this change initiative and some analytical questions to go with them. With more direct understanding of your institutional culture, you can begin to narrow down some strategic efforts to one or two frames and figure out how you're going to make this change as successful as possible. Thanks.